Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is the KRON 4 Morning News.
Well, I'm going to send you over to Henry. Now, don't worry. He really is okay, despite the machinery.
How am I doing?
Am I going to be able to make good eye contact with you?
How am I doing? Am I doing okay?
If you're talking, you're okay.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an anesthesiologist standing by, which is going to make this a regular feature of our program. But in this particular case, he's here to explain why, if you go into surgery, you got a few questions to ask and maybe a little equipment that you ought to be adding on to what the doctor's giving you. We'll tell you about it coming up if I survive this break. We'll be right back. KRON 4 News Weekend. You sure I'm okay? Because I'm feeling okay. Welcome back to KRON 4 News Weekend. So I think I'm doing just fine as far as we can tell, but are you going to be doing fine if you step into the OR, get knocked out under complete anesthesia? Well, we have with us an anesthesiologist who says that the best gear is not necessarily made available or being used by patients. Let me introduce you to Dr. Barry Friedberg. He is a board-certified anesthesiologist, and he's a man on a mission. I've never known such a passionate anesthesiologist. I thought you guys just sat in the OR room and snoozed most of the time. But he says that before you go into the OR, there are some essential questions you can ask, and we're going to find out a little bit about that. So just for starters, what isn't happening for patients who go in for surgery under complete anesthesia?
Henry, they're not getting the right thing measured, and they're being exposed to an undue risk that is avoidable.
And what should be measured that isn't?
Your brain.
What else are you watching in the OR? I mean,
traditionally, we're watching the signs here: your electrocardiogram, your blood pressure, and your oxygen sensor. And those are great if I want to know everything about you from the neck down. The trouble is the drugs I'm giving you medicate you from the neck up, your brain.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is to use a brain monitor.
Okay, isn't that, I just assumed, until I read your material, I assumed that they were monitoring my brain before. You're saying they ain't?
They ain't doing it. The machines exist in 60% of American hospitals. They're only being used 20% of the time.
Wow. So first of all, before we talk about why they're not, what is it that we're missing here? This would be part of it.
This is the sensor that goes on your forehead that plugs into this computer or one of the other devices. There's about 6 makers on the market. So this is not the mission. My mission is not to promote this company.
You have no financial, I just want to clarify, no financial interest in this personally.
Neither right? I nor my Goldilocks Anesthesia Foundation has an interest.
Okay, so this goes on your forehead, and admittedly, they may not work color scheme wise, but it goes here, hooks into, I don't need to go through the whole thing, hooks into here. I'm a little worried if we put it on, you'll discover there's no activity. Hooks into here, and then you as an anesthesiologist throughout the surgery are able to monitor my brain.
And it will generate a number between 0 and 100. The lower the number goes, the more asleep you are.
Okay, why wouldn't everybody use something like this? I mean, it clearly is beneficial. There's no downside in terms of health. Does it cost a lot? Is that the issue?
No, it's a $20 sensor, and the problem is it's not incentivized.
Are you going to charge me more for monitoring me with this $20 sensor as well?
No.
Okay, so then you say it's not incentivized. Why aren't people using it in hospitals?
The hospital doesn't have a billing code for the sensor, Henry, and the anesthesiologist, again, doesn't have an upcharge. So there's no positive incentive, and the drug companies, of course, would stand to lose as much as 30% of their drug sales if this was used on everybody.
Whoa, sounds like a conspiracy theory to me. So you're saying that if I say to my anesthesiologist, excuse me, I would like to have one of these, the hospital would say, sure, we can do that, but you're going to have to pay for it yourself because we don't even have a code so that when we go to the insurance company, we can tell them you got to pay for this.
The hospital isn't even going to let you pay for it.
Wow. Why would the government not say, look, as you got Medicare, let's say, or you're on Medicaid, we want you to have one of these because it matters. It's going to help them monitor your health.
Well, that's an excellent question, Henry, and it's hard to really give you a good answer except invoking your conspiracy theory. I mean, there's big money, there's the military-industrial complex, and we have the anesthesia big pharma complex.
Okay, well, then that obviously begs the question, is this really a problem that you're monitoring? I mean, how common is it for people to suffer poor outcomes as a result of not wearing one of these?
Great question. One patient a day, every day, dies from anesthesia over medication, and that's not even the worst thing that could happen to you. Anesthesia over medication can trigger an Alzheimer's-like dementia that you don't recover from.
Well, do we know that that's happening?
We do know that's happening. We don't have hard numbers because these monitors aren't being used universally, but it's a well-known phenomenon.
So supposing I'm getting surgery, what do I do?
Well, the first thing you want to do is do your homework, find out who's giving your anesthesia, and then ask the major question, will I have a brain monitor for my surgery?
And what if the hospital is saying, well, you can't do that?
You say, not a problem. I'll go to a hospital that does do it. That's the model for change.
Okay, and you have no financial interest in it. You've got a foundation. This is just because you think that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, not only that, when I had my hip done 2 years ago, there was no way they were going to give me anesthesia without a brain monitor.
If you want some more information, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to the website. Let me make sure I've got this right, because this is really interesting. It's called GoldilocksAnesthesiaFoundation.org. GoldilocksAnesthesiaFoundation.org, because not too much, not too little being the concept. And go ahead, give me your tagline.
Okay, you want to be sure you wake up with the same number of marbles that you started with.
Thank you. This guy's not only passionate, but he's got the message down. Fascinating. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Henry. Thank you for having me.